Now, what we're going to do with this actually is have a look at about 60 seconds, maybe a bit more, of the story from last night. So this is from last night's One News. Then we'll go into what's been said today, because this kind of gives it quite a good nutshell. Because remember, this is the government and these are the parties of law and order. And this is the Prime Minister, and these are the leaders who have been saying, we've got to keep our police from going overseas. We've got to keep our nurses. We've got to keep our teachers. Mr. Luxon is the then opposition leader who sat on television breakfast, and when basically led down the path by the host to say the reason they're leaving is because of salary increases in Australia. And when he was asked, will you increase the salaries, I think that was for teachers, he wouldn't answer that. He refused to answer it. You know, he did his squirrel and looked away. So if you're going to be the party of law and order, if you're going to make promises around gang patches and around, ram raids, and all, you are building a relationship where you need to rely on the police. So therefore, you need to treat them like gold, right? They're basically the people who are carrying out what you've promised to the country would happen. You need to keep them in New Zealand, right? And you need to treat them like gold. Yeah. Funnily enough, this government's not doing that.
When it comes to crime, politicians have been beating their chests.
Today, I'm announcing tougher sentences for criminals.
For too long, gangs have been allowed to behave as if they are above the law.
I think the gangs understand that there's a different government in place now.
But the officers they're relying on to enforce their new rules aren't happy because of their pay.
Farcical, demoralising, disgusting, an absolute joke. These are how these officers feel. I've never seen our police officers as angry as they are now.
We are on their side, and we do back them up.
The offer police have rejected includes a $5,000 pay increase backdated to November, a 4% pay increase in September this year, and another 4% in 2025.
If you think it's just officers being greedy, a 6-year social worker and a nurse that's been in the role for 6 years will earn $22,000 more than a police constable who's been in the role 6 years.
He says many are struggling to make ends meet.
Struggling to pay their rent, to pay their mortgage, to put food on the table. You've got others that are going to food banks.
Do you think New Zealanders would be shocked to hear that police officers are having to go to food banks?
I think they'd be stunned.
This officer, a single parent who wants to remain anonymous, living that reality.
Okay, sorry, I was looking at the wrong number. So there you go. So this is the story from last night that kind of broke a bunch of this. Police officers having to go to food banks, yada, yada, yada. Now, whether you are a fan of the police or not, this is kind of about, for me at least, about the government who swore black and thin blue line that they're going to be the people who keep our public servants, which includes the police, and also who are going to be the government of law and order and fixing up law and order, which is kind of essential to have the police on side for that. And what they're doing, I've got some interview to play with Chris Cahill from this morning, is they're not doing that. In fact, it's said in this interview that Labor gave the police a better offer, Chewy. Isn't that weird? How this is the government of law and order, yet Labor were giving a better offer to the police.
Look, I'm glad to see that the discussion is linking around similar type of workers, right? Police, teachers, nurses, right? They're paid directly by the government. They're vital to how this country runs. Now, whatever you think of the police, I think they look at it from a worker's point of view. Imagine you've been in a negotiation for a pay rise, and you get one, and you're like, "Hey, we're not happy with that. We'll give you some time to come up with a better offer." And then go away for a few months. The guy coming back with the offer, his face changes, and you get okay. So we've always backed you guys, right? We've been very pro police, very very pro law and order. So anyway, we've come up with a super good deal, and they take the sheet off the deal, and it's the same one. How pissed are you? I'm shocked by the idea of a full-time police constable going to a food bank. That's fucking crazy. And yeah, the same problem that we have with teachers, the same problem that we have with nurses. They're getting lured overseas by better paying conditions. If you want to stop people doing that, you need to offer them better paying conditions. That's just, I think, basic math. But when they've campaigned so hard on we're the party of law and order, they're going to ask police to do more against more dangerous characters.
Yeah.
And they're not going to give them more money to do it. I mean, surely a mercenary like Mark Mitchell would understand that you need to pay people to put themselves in harm's way. Like, all of these parties are worried, we want so many new cops on the beat. It's never. Have you noticed that change in language? It's new cops. It's not more cops.
Yeah.
Let's get that churn going. So we have less operational experience. We have less institutional knowledge because we're training these people. We're training them to a good standard, good enough for other countries to snipe them. But we're not keeping them. And every time we don't keep someone in that job, we've wasted that investment in training them. We've wasted everything that they've learned after they got trained. It is bad economics.
Speaking of economics, what didn't come up in that thing, and it's going to come up now, is obviously as well, all of this, the negotiations for wage increases and stuff, is on the back of the government giving millions, hundreds of millions, billions of dollars back to landlords and tax cuts. Now, I just worked it out. There's about 10,500 police officers in New Zealand. That $800 million hole, just that one hole in that one policy, divided by 10,500 is $76,000. Now, obviously, they're not going to give all of that to police officers, but just to go to show how the money they're giving away, the government is giving away, could easily add 10, 15 grand on to each officer's. Like, what's that? 10,500, what about, say, times 15,000, just out of interest, is 157 million. So about 1/6 of their $800 million hole. Now, again, I'm not saying they'd give them all straight 15 grand, but you can see how the money we're talking about that this government is giving to other places or not taking in taxes could actually physically go to making nurses, teachers, police officers, ambulance officers, public servants more comfortable, and that's what they need to keep them here. So all the money you're giving away in tax, right, could be going back to people who you're saying have to stay here, who won't stay here because the money's no good, but you're giving away the money that could be given to them to make their money better. Do you see the cycle, Mr. Luxon?
But they're all, I mean, surely you'd call a beat cop your sort of entry-level police constable, that sort of thing. They're a backroom worker, right? They're not frontline. Not a frontline worker that we value. Like it's just crazy. I think about these jobs, cops, teachers, nurses. Like often these are jobs where people have been attracted to for a long time because they want to make a change, right? Yep. Teachers want to make a change. Nurses want to make a change. Police want to make a change. And that sort of drive to do that sort of job will mean that you put up with a lot. Like the shit that nurses put up with, the long hours that teachers do, and the absolute bullshit that cops have to put up with. Why would you put up with that job if your pay also sucks?
Yeah. How much would you have to get paid to be possibly shot at every day? Like what would that paycheck have to look like?
How much do I need to have someone else's bodily fluids on me without my consent?
Oh, some people pay for that, Joey, let alone get paid.
I had to put in the consent thing there because consent is sexy. The bar is pretty high. I don't want to be scrubbing puke out of a patrol car or having to wash my sneakers every couple of days because there's blood and piss all over them. Pay the people that have to wash their shoes because of blood, piss, and vomit more. I think that everyone can agree with that, right?
Yeah, and look, just so people know, minimum wage is about minimum hourly rate is about 47,000. The average wage in New Zealand at the moment is about 90. A first-year police officer earns $67,000. The average annual salary for an officer working in their fifth year is $74,000. So that's the money you're talking. They're not even at the average wage in New Zealand.
I'm really close to that, and I sit on a stool every day and tell people how to log into Facebook.
All right.
You know, that's ridiculous. And when we look at these things, like people go, oh, we can't afford the nice things. We can't afford free lunches for kids or free public transport or anything like that. We can't afford these frivolities. Now you can add to the frivolity frontline policing. We can't afford that. You fucking can. You know who has the money. You know who has the money, and we know how much money we can raise out of them if we put some focus on them, and we can have these nice things like nurses that don't feel like they have to quit and move countries, and police going to food banks. That's crazy. That's a crazy world that we're living in. That's not the New Zealand that any of us want.
Yeah. All right. Let's get to Chris Cahill. He was on breakfast this morning, Police Association president. First clip is basically just him telling us that the police are unhappy and why.
Well, Chris joins us now. Chris, clearly you don't mince your words. Were you surprised by this offer?
Yeah, Marina. Well, they're actually the words of our members. That's the sort of feedback we got from our members, but I agree with them. Look, we're really surprised. We've been waiting over a year to try and get something on the table that's meaningful for our officers. Been mucked around by successive governments. When they put their offer on the table, they then didn't backdate it fully to when the collective ran out. So that $5,000 might sound good. It's actually closer to $3,000 due to the not backdating. And again, that 4%, when it should kick in 1 July this year, they've moved it to 1 September. They've also put a number of clawbacks in there. One example, detectives would lose about $1,100 a year. So there's a lot of hidden stuff in here, and it just doesn't go close to addressing the issues that our members have asked to be addressed.
How more disappointing is it that it came from one of your own?
Yeah, I mean, without a doubt, you know, Mark's been a big supporter of the police, but he's got to front up. You know, he's come out. He said we're going to crack down on the gangs. We're going to shut the youth crime down. We're going to lower the road toll. All these things are putting more demand on officers. They're going to have to work harder. They're going to have to work longer. Well, there's a quid pro quo to that, and that is for him to go back to the Minister of Finance, Prime Minister, and get us a better package.
There you go. He wants a better package. So there's step number one. We'll go straight into the second clip, shall we? Because the second clip talks more about Mark Mitchell, and it's actually a clip of him talking about trying to deflect the tax breaks for landlords conversation. So TVNZ, said we've got some footage from yesterday when we talked to him, and this is what he had to say. So this is exactly what I was talking about. We've got these tax breaks for landlords going back, billions of dollars being taken out of the economy whilst we're paying public servants shit money.
They're two entirely separate things. What we've said is that we want to strengthen our economy, and when you're talking about renters, the problem that we've got there is that people that are renting houses have had a massive increase in their rent, and we're in a cost of living crisis. So literally often every dollar matters, and so that is why we're dealing with that issue. The pay negotiation obviously is a separate issue, and that is us as an incoming government in a tough economic position, trying to do the best that we can.
He's the first one, Mark Mitchell, that I've thought maybe he doesn't understand. Like all the other ones I go, they know, they're just choosing not to understand it. But he might be the first one that doesn't quite get it, that the not taking as much tax money in means you can't put as much out, whether it's from sector A or sector Z. If you've got money coming into the pot and then less money comes into the pot, then you've got less you can put out. So to say it's a very different situation, as I said, he may be the first one that I would believe if he said he didn't understand it. The first one, Drew. This has got about 45 seconds. I'll get to the end, eh?
And through a good faith process with the association.
So, Chris, a tough economic position the government is in. Is that a good enough excuse?
Well, they've got choices. I mean, cost of living crisis, they're dead right. Police officers are facing that as well, I got a report yesterday.
Good answer.
Officers, both in the police, have had to move home to live with their parents so they can get renters in to actually pay their mortgage. Others who have got $50 to spare a fortnight after paying their mortgage and their rates.
And just on this, Chewy, not casting any aspersion over any police officer, but, some illegal activity going on that if you could look the other way might slip you $500 a week in your pocket. You can just see how some people might feel they're a police officer, they've got a Glock on their waist, but they still may feel desperate enough financially to make stupid decisions. I mean, if you don't pay them enough to do their job to live comfortably, they may look for income elsewhere, whether that's through legal means or illegal means. And these people who are running into the criminal community all the time, I'm sure have lots of opportunities that come before them to, you know, make a bit here and there, and they're choosing not to, going, well, these guys have got their $1 million apartments and that, and I'll just go back to my $50 a week left over after everything's paid. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. Historically, we have really low corruption levels in New Zealand. And yeah, you've absolutely nailed it on the head. It is an excellent answer to point out that all of the things that he's saying as reasons that they can't pay cops are the issues that cops are dealing with as well. Cops are renters. Cops have to use the supermarkets, all of that sort of thing. Because crazy, look, this might knock you off your chair. Cops are people.
And they live in our community, apparently.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That's like they've forgotten that. It's funny. We can use the police as a jingoistic bumper sticker in an election year, but again, we won't think past that. You know, these platitudes of like, oh, we value the work that you do. And when we say we value the work with it, we don't value it obviously with money, because that's crazy. We know that the landlords are out there doing the hard mahi. They're the guys that really need to be rewarded for their hard work of renting out 100-year-old leaky villas to people. And just, you know, you've got to set a date on your calendar that you've got to put the rent up every 12 months. It's a hard life. So sorry, cops, get in line.
All right, let's get to the end of this. It's 30 seconds to go, and then we've got one more clip after it.
Others who are paying $1,400 a fortnight in rent and gives them very little money left to look after their 2 children. Things like this. Government has choices. They've chosen to give landlords a tax break. So it's a choice they made. So they can also make a choice to give police officers an appropriate lift in pay. And look, to give you an idea, we're not being greedy. A 6-year constable in the police, so been in there 6 years, will earn $22,000 less than a nurse that's been in 6 years. So there's a big disparity going on here that needs to be addressed.
You know what National's going to do, eh? You know what they're going to do? How they're going to
pay the nurses less.
They're going to drop the nurse's salary by $22,000 in the 6th year, and then everyone's going to get paid the same. Wouldn't surprise me. Brooke Van Velden comes out with that tomorrow. I'm going to go straight to this last bit because it's only 28 seconds long. The question gets asked, how does this current offer compare to Labour's offer?
Well, it's actually lower because the previous offer kicked in from the 1st of April. So this one doesn't kick in till the 1st of November. So that takes about close to $2,000 away from it straight away. The previous offer had about $600 for a medical health check every year, which is really important if you want to keep officers fit and on the front line.
Crazy.
That's been taken away.
Frivolity.
And then there's a number of clawbacks that have been introduced into it that weren't there previously. So it's actually a lower offer.
There you go. So, you know, that party of communists and anarchists, those guys who we threw out because they weren't they were offering the police a better deal than their supposed party of laws. Chewy, yours, sir.
Nakora C points out the police are on the right side of the picket line for once. Look, there's lots of criticism we could level at the police historically for lots of things that they do.
Sure.
And certainly historically against the labour unions, yes, they've always been on the wrong side of it. But you know what? Sometimes you got to say, you stick your hand up and go, you know, it's right in this particular instance. When we look at what the issue is that they have been used as a political tool, and they are not getting any reward for it. I just want to go, Cole. You guys knew that this was going to happen because we could see it.
Yeah, of course.
Like, your police minister is one of the first mercenaries in existence that doesn't realize that he needs to pay his people.
Mark Mitchell.
Mark Mitchell, mercenary man.